All right. My name is Wesley Eater. I'm currently the president of the Kalama School Board, and just want to welcome you tonight to this community forum. As you know, we're in the middle of interviews for superintendent position for our school district, and we have tonight Brandon Carranco-Moeller, who will be speaking to you and sharing with you tonight. He's one of our candidates for superintendent, and so with that, I do want to thank you for coming, both if you're here in person as well as online. Also, if you submitted a question, thank you for that. And if you participated in our survey, I think it was about a couple of weeks ago, there was a survey that went out. If you participated in that, certainly we want to thank you for that involvement as well, because all of it really just helps us as we try to make the best decision possible for the school district. Okay, so thank you. I'm going to introduce Nick Shanmac. Nick is our communications manager. He'll be acting as moderator tonight for our interview. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Wes. And hello to those of you joining us in person. Thank you for taking the time. And thank you for those of you joining us on Zoom. I'm just off camera, but appreciate everyone. It's the dinner hour, so appreciate you making this time in your evening. So like all of our forums this week, we had one yesterday. We've got another one on Thursday. We hope that this gives you a better understanding of who our finalists for the superintendent position are, their educational philosophy, their leadership style, and their strategic vision. So we do have a few ground rules to go over. Like Wes said, I do have a set of questions for tonight's finalists, and those questions were submitted by members of the community. Certainly, once we get through those questions, as time permits, we can open things up for additional questions and discussion. The one rule to mention is that questions cannot include any personal attacks on individuals. So without further ado, let's meet tonight's finalist. Sound like a game show host.
Yes, it does. Good.
Brandon Carranco-Moeller has spent the bulk of his 23-year career in education working with Clark County School District, not this Clark County, but the one in Nevada, serving for the past 5 years as director of the district's Equity and Diversity Education Department. And this is a role that has required assessing, creating, implementing, and evaluating district-wide diversity initiatives that support access, opportunity, and an equitable learning environment for all staff and students. Brandon earned his Master's of Education degree from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And there's a lot more to your background and your career, so I'm excited to hear about it. But please welcome Brandon Carranco-Moeller.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here tonight. Thank you for having me.
And let's start things off right off the top. Brandon, just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay.
And why you're interested in being Kalama's next superintendent.
Sure. Great question. Well, first of all, I wanted to tell everyone thank you so much for having me, just being here and being part of the interview process. I'm very grateful. My wife and I have been looking for a community like we grew up in. We grew up in small towns throughout our life. I grew up in Billings, Montana. My immediate family's from Miles City, Montana. We ended up transplanting down to Vegas and have been there quite a long time since then. But I looked at the advertisement that came out. We looked at the town, and a lot of the attributes and characteristics that were outlined in the application, I felt that I had those and I could be of service. So I looked at that, I thought that could fit. And then again, we looked at the town, and it looked like what we have been looking for the past few years. This has been a thing that's been on our mind, to move to a town like this. And actually about a week and a half ago, we came out early because we were excited, and we've been driving around just looking at the town, talking to people. And one of the things we constantly asked everyone is, what do you like about Kalama? And what is so inviting? And everyone said we're a close-knit community, we support each other, we're connected, and we're like a big family. And that just hit me and my wife, Carmen, who's with us tonight. She's an assistant principal in Clark County School District 2. It really hit us where we know that this feels good to us. As far as my background, I got into education a long time ago, 23 years. I've been working in education. I started as a third grade teacher. I've been fortunate enough that I have met very good mentors in my life who have constantly given me larger projects with more responsibility. And it's created a great experience for me where I've gained an exceptional amount of knowledge because they've been helping me throughout this whole process. So I started as a third grade teacher. One of the first things that was asked of me at that time was to roll out a literacy plan and pilot it. And I was a first year teacher rolling that out. It was very in-depth instructional practices that I had to put together along with curriculum integration. I worked with the staff and we were able to implement that on top of writing a grant that supported it for that year. And it ended up working out well that the academics for the students increased. And actually the Nevada Department of Ed had a professional development group, and they asked me if I could bring that type of information and present it to Southern Nevada, the rest of the districts. So I ended up joining the Regional Professional Development Program, rolling out instructional practices and school improvement plans to help better different schools throughout Southern Nevada in the rural areas and in the urban. From there, I bumped into a principal of a magnet school, Joe Mackey Magnet School. And at the time, they needed to redo their theme, their curriculum. They wanted to change it into something about leadership. And the principal had heard about me and she asked, do you want to come work with me as the theme coordinator? And at the time they didn't have assistant principals, so the theme coordinator functioned as that along with the instructional strategist. And she said, we need to move this forward. Do you think you can work with staff and do that? Would you want to do it? And I said, yes, this is a great learning experience. So I worked with staff and we developed a leadership curriculum framework that focused on 21st century learning. It was a magnet school, so we feed into the middle schools and the high schools career and tech. So we started career and tech information for the students called explorations, even in elementary, so we could line that up. At the time, there was only one other leadership school in the United States, so we were going to be second. And one of the things we really focused on was where do we want our school to go? Where do we want it to go to? How high? And everyone said, we want to build something that will make it one of the top leadership schools in the United States. And we worked on that curriculum, that 21st century learning, and it ended up working. The staff started working with that and it built, and Joe Mackey is a top leadership school in the United States. It has won multiple Magnet School of the Year awards and is considered a four-star school. It's even expanded. The new principal has taken it from not just a K-5, but a K-8, and they have a whole new building they built for it. So that was a great experience about learning about instruction, collaborating with people, and building capacity. From there, I was asked if, because I was getting noted because I was working with people and putting good structures together, I was asked if I could work at HR in the Human Resources Division and work with recruitment and retention. At the time, our district is so large that we have our own police department, but they were struggling with pulling in enough candidates in the pool to go through their academy. So they asked if I would work with them and take that on as a job and try to come up with a plan that would increase recruitment. So I worked with the police department and we came up with an idea that we would start doing pre-training for people, get them prepped for the academy and the boot camp so they knew what was going to come out on the academic test and the physical test. And we piloted it to see how it went. And we ended up increasing the number of recruitments that were ready for their academy by 50%. So it was a great success. They're still doing that today to keep their recruitment up. From there, I went to the Clark County School District's curriculum and instruction division, where I was tasked with rolling out curriculum and instruction for the Clark County School District. And it involves literacy, math, instructional practices, strategy, working with teams, and helping build up schools that said that they needed assistance. I also was at that point assigned to be the administrator over the Educational Support Center, which is a small center on the rural Mawapa Educational Reservation. And we worked with our American Indian Alaska Native tribal elders because we noticed that there was a need in the ELA, English Language Arts and Math, that was dropping, and we needed to build that up. So I worked with tribal leaders, the school principals that were in that area, and staff members, and we brainstormed what was then a very innovative program, which was hybrid. We did some of it in person for the kids, and some of it was online. They were transient, they moved around, so they needed an option where they could do both. And we started implementing that on top of looking at the data that was coming in so we could have deep discussions on the instruction to see what was working or what needed to be adjusted. And what ended up happening is it was successful. We ended up increasing their English language arts and their math by 12% or more. And then I was asked to roll that out district-wide to assist others that were not on the reservation. The Clark County School District, that was a big project because the Clark County School District is the 5th largest district in the United States. It's the largest urban and rural district, even though we have a big city section. A lot of our schools are in the rural, and so you have to service both of those. We have over 320,000 students. We have over 370 schools. We have over 40,000 employees. Our elementary schools are anywhere from 500 to 700 students. Our middle schools are roughly around 1,500 to 2,000 students. And our high schools have a population of around 3,500. So it's very vast and very spread out. But we were able to identify those American Indian Alaska Native students. We were able to identify teachers in all the different schools out there, bring them together for professional learning to learn how to do this new program, and then rolled it out, and it was successful and provided the support to all of them throughout the district. After that program got done, the next thing that I was assigned was to roll out the safe and respectful learning environment. And what that was is at the time, this is right when bullying was really beginning to start and the issues were rising. We didn't have a policy at that time, so the initiative was work on this situation, build a policy, build an intervention plan, and ensure that all of the employees know what this is and everyone got trained up. It was a large project, but the first thing I did is start calling everyone for assistance. Nevada Department of Ed didn't have a policy either at that time, so we worked together along with community members and students and administrators. We started examining all the different laws that were out there, and we started writing a policy for bullying prevention. And it ended up becoming the state's first bullying policy, and Nevada Department of Ed also used it to come up with a template policy to use for the rest of the state. As far as the intervention that went with that, we came up with an intervention plan where we flipped the script, is what we used to call it. So we would say, be an up standard to bullying. That became a theme and a statement we rolled out district-wide. And then we have what we call the Week of Respect in October, that the last Friday of that week, we would do something great. Because during that week, it was everything that was anti-bullying, everything about being kind, being respectful. We made guidance and a curriculum for the whole district that they could follow during that time. But it ended with everyone putting on a blue shirt that says, get your blue on. It was our way of saying, we're not going to do bullying. We're going to be kind to each other. We're going to support each other. And it really grew to where everyone was using it throughout the whole district. And it even expanded out to the other districts in Nevada. And actually, Nevada Department of Ed puts that out also, that at the Week of Respect on Friday, we all go blue. So it was a great experience there, rolling out a large project and supporting. And my career then moved into other district level administration work, where I've been involved in multi-tiered systems of support, developing professional learning communities and the training that goes with that, grant writing for multi-million-dollar grants to support trauma-informed and restorative practices, which we're rolling out right now in the district over 3 years. I've been involved in policy writing and legislation that ties to all that, on top of following, the different budgets that we have to go through. So that's the kind of the big scope of where I went with my career. And again, it's been really great, but it's also been focused on relationships and building partnerships with everyone. Everything that I was able to accomplish was really because there were great people that I was surrounded with that supported me, and we worked well together, and that was the glue that held us and led us to those things getting done. And for me too, I think I bring that perspective here, and I'd like to bring that here as a service and to see how I could work and offer those experiences, and they can be a benefit, I hope. And then the other thing is, I've always been a struggling learner. I got to throw that out there. I've always struggled, and probably till my first year of college, it finally toned down. But I did not learn as quickly as everyone else. So if somebody else took a half hour to take a test and do well, it took me an hour and a half. If somebody studied for an hour, it took me 2 or 3. So I bring that up because I think that's helped me throughout my educational career, because I know what it's like to be that student sitting there struggling. I know what it feels like, and I also know what good teaching is from that, because I still had some good teachers that rose to the occasion for me. They built a strong student-teacher relationship, and that's what got me where I am today, and I'm thankful for that. And lastly, I'd love to leave a legacy for my kids and others that go through that type of struggle, that look where you can go when you work with others, when you persist, when you don't quit, and you keep struggling and moving forward. Look where you can go when you surround yourself with great people. So that's my big journey. And I hope also as we move forward that I get to continue that journey with all of you. I'd be thankful if I could. So that's my big picture. And then I guess we'll throw it back to some questions I believe that might pop up. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, there's a lot in there that was great. We want to
I've had a long journey. Yes,
Yeah.
It's been long.
A lot of elements there to touch on and expand on for sure. And one of them, you mentioned the Clark County School District being one of the largest in the nation.
Yes.
Obviously, Kalama School District is a small school district.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about maybe what do you foresee being some of the positives and negatives, challenges and opportunities going from such a huge system to potentially leading as superintendent for a small school district?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, again, going back, Clark County is the largest urban and rural. So I had to service schools on the outskirts that were, you have to drive an hour and a half to get to them. And there would only be an elementary, middle school, and high school out in the middle of nowhere to the most part. So working with rural is not a big stretch, because we had to be functional to provide services in all those areas. The other thing with me working with cultures and different systems and supports, you learn that every place that you go, you have to assess and determine what is needed for that system. You can't come in and push anything in. It has to be, where are we at and how can I help you and be of service to you? Because every community is different. The way one functions here, you can drive 10 miles to the next school and it doesn't function the way this one does. So you always start with making those connections, finding out what the real need is, and then determining how you can assist in developing a plan of support with everyone together. And that, I think, is the key to doing anything, is making sure that communication happens and everyone's working together and everyone's involved and has a voice at the table. And so those are the things I think I would bring here again. As far as anything, yes, if the challenges or areas that would grow and be great, I think the stuff that you've done thus far, I've been doing my research and I'm not done. I've been reading as much as I can, and what I really find fascinating is that the Kalama community has really been innovative in engineering education since 1871. I read about the first teacher that improvised a classroom to get education going here. And it seems like as a community, you've continued that same theme throughout, and then it's led to these innovative buildings being built and the curriculum and instructions that you're putting together now. That is fascinating. That's something I'd love to be a part of. I've done stuff like that before, and you are leading that as a community. And I think that's a great thing that needs to be congratulated and something that needs to continue. As far as any challenges, I think the challenges with it, whether it's a small district or a large district, is continuing to support our kids, making sure we have a safe and respectful learning environment for not just our kids, but our staff. Learning does not occur if it's not safe. Making sure that we have high quality instruction is something that we always want to make sure that we have for academics, behavior, social emotional learning, and 21st century learning skills. And we always want to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible so we can spread the money as much as we can to support our kids and our community as much as possible. And yeah, I think bringing all those components together are what we need to look at as a group. But as far as the challenges are some of the same challenges that we face in the nation right now. We have a teacher shortage that's impacting everyone, so constantly trying to find instructors and working with different colleges and community groups to make sure that we can build that up. And again, making sure that we have a safe learning environment where we all feel that we're learning together.
That's great. You talked about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
What strategies would you use as superintendent to effectively engage with staff, students, school board, families, community members? What would you do to engage with those audiences?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of the stuff that I work on with different schools and helping them is ensuring that you're reaching out to the families to finding out what their best communication style is, what works for them, and then working towards that. For example, we have in Las Vegas, a lot of people who work swing shift. So if you're putting on a lot of activities between 4 and 5, they're at work. That's not going to work. So what other times and areas can we adjust so we can get families in and have that opportunity to communicate? I also, with the board that is there, they do a lot of town hall meetings, and each trustee does it for their area. And the great thing about that is that's a time for the superintendent or a leader of a school or a project to come and speak with the community and discuss a lot of the new initiatives that are going forward, or to make sure everyone understands something that is being done in the district and there's clear communication that's happening right there. The other thing that we do, that we work on, is just making sure that there's constant communication through technology, through your newsletters and things of that nature. But I think the biggest thing is that a superintendent, a person who's invested in the community, has to be in the community. You have to be here 24/7. It's not something that turns off. You're doing it when you're at the restaurant, you're doing it when you're at the games, you're doing it when you're out shopping, getting food in the evening. I'm on call 24/7. That's what a superintendent has to do. It's a hard job. I'm not going to say it's easy, but if you're committed and you're passionate about it and you're here for the kids in the community for the right reason, then you're doing it. And for me, I am here for that reason. I like doing it. It's something that I get a thrill out of, and I really enjoy it. I got the opportunity to get questioned by kids today, and one of them asked me about connecting to kids and talking and all that, and we were discussing different ways that we could communicate and get along. And she said to me, she goes, "You know what? You're very caring. I can tell that." Just that nailed me. So those are the things that makes me keep coming back, and those are the things that keeps me working the way I do, because I want to help those kids get where they need to get, and that just warmed my heart for today. Great day.
So one of our questions submitted from the community asks, are you familiar with Washington's Alternative Learning Experience Program, or ALE? And if so, what are your thoughts about it? We have a great program here at Kalama, but how would you make it better?
I think, well, yeah, and I've heard about it and I've read about it, and I like that it's the online courses that provide additional, academics and an opportunity to learn in a different light. Again, we have to get our kids ready for 21st century learning. By 2026, that's the due date. The U.S. Department of Ed and others have said that we need to have these systems in place. So for 21st century learning, They know that we need students that are critical thinkers, problem solvers, good communicators. They're able to interact and collaborate. And they're going to be working online and in different formats than we're used to, at least as far as how we grew up in the classroom. So having these other opportunities is key to that, and expanding it and looking for any chances to get the word out for more kids to try it and do it, or intertwine it in what we're doing here, like hybrid, some online, some not, or coming together. Those are going to be the opportunities that are going to allow those type of areas to increase. And I think that's really a skill that we have to work on. That's something that I work on myself, because it's growing fast, and we need to constantly be looking for what that next step is going to be together.
Great. Another question that was submitted to us from a member of the community was, what is your experience working with special education teams, and how will you support those students, parents, and staff?
Yeah, I've worked in special education as far as helping kids and sitting on IEPs. I understand the gist of that and what goes through putting IEP together for students. I think the biggest thing that we have to do in general, I'll say this of all schools, not necessarily here, is making sure that gen ed teachers are trained up appropriately so they can provide services for inclusion. Our special ed kids and kids in general all learn the best when they are working together in collective groups and collaborating. The dialogue and the discussions that happen there, that's where learning occurs. Not just sitting and getting and writing on a piece of paper and bubbling in answer marks. It doesn't happen like that. It happens when those discussions happen and they're working with peers. So ensuring that that is available as much as possible, and then ensuring that the structure within the school provides that special ed support for the kids. You know, do we have the resources here? Do we have the supports and systems in place that support what their IEP outlines that they need? And if not, then it's working hard and working fast with the state and other superintendents around the area to troubleshoot and find a way that we can build that up. That is something that I've always used as a resource, and I think that's one of my strengths is whenever there's a problem, I get on the phone and I start calling everyone I know to pull people together to try to figure out how to solve it. I'm not ever going to say that I have all the answers because you can't. I think the best way to do it is always be reaching out, talking to people. So with those type of situations, I'd be calling everyone, looking at how we can work and deal with the issue or the area that needs to be built up here to support it.
So this next question, I think, touches on a topic that has been out there for a conversation really across the country. So it'd be interesting to hear your perspective on it. The question is, what role do you see parents and families playing in the education of their children?
Well, parents and family play a huge role, huge role. Without family support and engagement, academics goes down. So we need to make sure that there is that communication, that ability between schools to work in collaboration with the parents and work on the academics. Some of the things that we've done is making sure that our family engagement is giving opportunities where we're providing services to the parents. We're actually showing you some of the things that we've learned that help at home. If there's a certain item that we're teaching at a certain point, you know, what's the new strategy or skill that we taught here in the classroom that we'd like to show you, so if your child asks for help when they're at home working through that project, you have some of those strategies that we're using here, and we're speaking the same language, and that helps that area move as far as everyone's understanding of what we're trying to get to. And the other one is making sure always that there's opportunities, that the doors are open at the schools and in the system, at the superintendent's office, where parents know that they can come in anytime they want to ask and be involved in what's going on. I think the biggest thing is also, though, ensuring that the communication is there and we're being respectful and we're supporting each other and keeping the anchor, is what I call it, of what our focus is. And our focus is our students, our kids. And as long as our focus is that we are there for them, it seems like everything else falls into place.
This next question from the community, I think it's right up your alley. What ideas do you plan to implement to stop bullying?
Well, what plans do I plan on implementing to stop bullying? Yeah, that is a big question. Well, first of all, before change happens, you never want to go in a system and just start changing stuff. It'll fall apart, first of all. So the first thing is to see what you have in place first, which I'm getting some information on. I would want to do basically a listening tour and a survey and look at the data before I implement anything. And that means I'd be going and doing town halls such as this, asking more about what's going on with the situation, what is working, what isn't, what do we see that is here and isn't here. And I would put that into basically a report, and I'd build a team that we would be functioning as, trying to find out how we're going to solve this problem. And we would come up with a basic plan that we would submit and even bring it to the Board of Trustees and say, this is what we're considering. I'd make sure that there's buy-in and involvement from all participants, because that's part of it. But that's what I would start with. As far as, I'll say nationally, because I don't know exactly everything happening here, nationally what everyone is trying to do to curb bullying is making sure that you have multi-tiered systems of support in place first. And what that is making sure that you have intervention strategies for students for behavior, academics, and social emotional learning. And it's making sure that as they move up in their needs, you're providing another more intense intervention that supports what their needs are. And it has a lot to do with data, it has a lot to do with instruction, and it has a lot to do with the support. So that's something that every school should be working on. That's something that helps curb those behaviors. If the instruction's good and the support's good, the behavior usually goes down. Usually behavior starts bumping up because something is not being serviced. It's a way that they're expressing themselves, not in a great way, but it is a way that they're showing something is off. So that's one way to do that. The other is making sure that the policies and regulations and systems that you have in place are clear, and they really delineate what's going to happen if there's a bully incident. For our school district, when I worked on the plan and with others, one of the things that we have in place for us, and this again where I have to look to see what is in place here, is that when a bully incident happens, it has to be stopped that day instantly. Parents are notified instantly, electronically, via email, phone call, or even paper pencil needs to go out instantly about who was harmed and who did the harm. They don't know who the actual student did the harm, but both parents of both students that were involved are notified that they were involved in a bully incident. An investigation happens immediately where you get the witness statements about what happened, and you instantly establish a safety plan that day. And for both students too, even the one that did the harm, because you're establishing a structure for them not to do the behavior again. And the other part that we add to that is that there's a restorative practice type segment that goes with that, where we get the kids to discuss and learn why the harmful behavior was so harmful and what happens when you do that. The ramifications of that. How are you hurting somebody else? They need to learn that. And if you're having an issue, what are the different strategies that you need to do with your behavior to change that? So all those things we have in place, and that all has to be done and finalized within 4 days. I think that that is a good strategy because it's quick, it's fast, it's bringing the parents in, it's dealing with the students right then and there to provide the support and safety that they need. And you're putting a lesson to it too, that it's not just punitive, you know, you're in trouble, go sit over there. It's an issue happened, it's not good. What are we going to do for you to learn about the strategies and the behaviors so you don't do it again? And those type of systems do work. We've been seeing reductions in our bullying incidents throughout the whole district, and also having a positive initiative that I spoke about before, where we did Week of Respect, where we're talking about anti-bullying initiatives, and we're having times where we're talking about respect. We're talking about how to be kind. We're talking about how to connect. I know that may seem like it doesn't do anything, but it does, because it's sending a constant message. This is what this school district stands for. We are open, we are inclusive, we do bring people together. We're here to respect each other and be kind to each other. It brings a mantra that begins to build, and everyone starts following that, and it brings everyone together.
So we've got about 20 minutes left, and I do have additional questions that were submitted previously, but I would like to open up an opportunity for those of you that took the time to come out here in person, or those of you that are joining on Zoom. Does anyone have any questions they would like to ask? If you just want to raise your
Hello, I'm Rosie Morgan.
Hi, Ms.
And
Morgan.
I have a couple questions actually, but one of my basic things is excellence in education. And to provide this to help the students become valued contributors to the community. So how can you make sure that that happens, and getting down to the basics and the core of what education is about?
That's a great question. That's one of the ones that I highlighted that I believe is a core value that you do have here, and that I also believe in, that high quality instruction takes place. And what that really goes back to is when I was talking about the multi-tiered systems of support. We really, to have good instruction, we have to assess where our kids are at to determine what their needs are, so then we can plan the instruction that fits them and builds them from where they are to where they need to be. If you do blanketed instruction at a solid just level, it doesn't get everyone. You know, only a few are able to learn in that fashion. You have to structure it where you're meeting the students' needs where they're at, and designing groups and allowing them the opportunity to collaborate. But that also has to be for academics, behavior, and social emotional learning. And the reason I keep bringing up behavior and social emotional learning is if those are off, learning won't occur. So in order for anyone to learn, you have to be in emotionally good state. I think if anyone thinks about a time that they're either upset, they're hurt, or they're sad, imagine me telling a great lesson about algebra. You're not going to be listening to me at all, because you're like, I'm worried about what's on my mind that I'm emotionally distraught about. So that's why those components are so key. And I think that leads to good instruction when you create an environment where they feel okay to learn. If they're stressed about something else, with some sort of trauma or something else that happened, it's going to shut that down. And as far as the instructional learning, that also happens when we have professional learning communities. And what that is when teachers get together at grade level or at department level, and they work on really examining the curriculum of where it is and where their students are, and they strategize constantly about what is working and what isn't. It's not waiting a month later, it's not waiting until 3 months later when another assessment's done. You're doing this weekly. And that's how you're able to find out the quick adjustments you need to make, either in reteaching or redesigning your lesson to reach the kids the right way. And those components really need to be in place. Okay. Thank you for the question.
Any other questions out there? Yep.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Kushner.
Hi, Mr. Kushner.
Based on having no experience as an actual superintendent or even a principal, what makes you feel you're qualified for this position over two other candidates that do have a history of those experiences and licenses?
Well, to an extent, I was the administrator over an educational center. And like I said, with the theme coordinator working at that building level, you did have those responsibilities. But where my expertise comes in is in the instructional area and the working of school improvement. That's where I'm work with schools to advise the principals and the staff on how to make improvements for instruction. And that's where that comes from. And I believe that is a core of what I can be of service to, because that's what I do. I help schools move in the right direction when things are off and they're not working and they need that expertise. The other is I work at a district level where I'm working with school associate superintendents constantly. So it's not like I'm out over here, you know, in the corner and I'm not involved with those. A lot of the work that we do is very much at that level with other school associate superintendents, the board of trustees, and other divisions and departments. I have to know all that for me to roll out a plan. For example, the trauma-informed and restorative practices that we had to roll out, that involves training the whole district up on that To do that, we contacted administrators. What do you need and how do you need it to work for you? I had to reach out to student services divisions, the psychological department. I had to pull in people from our educational services division that works on behavior. I had to reach out to the counseling department. Those are the type of things you need to do at a district level to pull the team together in order to put a structure in place that's going to fit the needs of all the schools. And I think that, having that experience at that level can be more, because I've experienced this at a broader viewpoint, than just maybe somebody that is a superintendent but it's over a small district. They've just dealt with it at that level. I've dealt with it at a larger level and had to roll stuff out at scale way beyond. So I think that just is an opportunity for me and a strength that I have that I can bring here. And like I said before, one of my other strengths is I build relationships, because I have to, because that's how it works the best. Just getting ready for this, I can't remember who I spoke to. I spoke to so many people. I got on the phone and started calling people in this area who are administrators and everything to find out the information that I need to bring what I know as far as knowledge and bring it together. So anything that I don't know, I figure out because I have to. Also, in the position that I'm at, you don't get like a handbook. You don't get an outline. You usually get, roll out this system, implement this, and that's it. It's up to you to do the research and the homework and make it happen. It's up to you to bring a team together to make it happen. And again, that's where I think my successes are. And as a superintendent, truthfully, that's what you have to do. You have to be good at reaching out to people and pulling a team together. You don't have to be the expert, because you can't be the expert at anything. And if somebody sits there and tries to, they're going to fail. You have to be the person that brings people together to solve the problem that's in front of you. And that's the support I believe I could bring. Thanks.
Speaking of bringing people together, one of the
Yes.
things that I think the community is very passionate about here are our athletics programs, our activities. I'm wondering, and a person from the community is wondering, submitted this question: how do you feel successful athletics and activities department impacts a school?
That's a great question. Athletics is another key component to students' academic success. It actually does impact them because it involves them in the school. It keeps them in an activity where they're still learning how to work with others, and it brings the parents in. All parents and family love to come to the games, and it brings a community together. Learning happens when you, as a student or a learner, feel that you are backed by the people and community around you. Again, it goes back to, the mindset. If you don't feel that you're supported, if you don't feel that you're getting any emotional help, you're not going to get there. And sports plays a big role in that. It shows you leadership skills, it shows you academic skills, it brings people together, it shows you how to be competitive yet supportive. And there's a lot in there, and it's something that's very enriching, and it really brings the community together. So I think it's a key point to academics.
Another one of our questions, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this was submitted by a staff member. They say, do you consider custodians just as important, whether they're day shift or swing shift? And generally speaking, how do you handle concerns from staff?
Okay, well, there's a two-part question. Okay, so as far as custodians and support staff, I see them just as valuable, if not more, than all the staff that works together. And the reason I say that is because when you go to a school, the office managers, sometimes the custodians, have great insight into the kids, because the kids are always talking to them and they're always interacting with them, and they are sometimes the heartbeat of what goes on. So including them in everything that happens is something that I would set forth, or I believe needs to be done. If the training is for educators, have them come with. I think it's important that they see what we're doing. It presents clear communication. And again, we're working as a team. It's not going to work if I'm presenting over here and helping this group and letting somebody else dangle over here. it doesn't help that way. And that's just the way me and my wife function. Neither of us grew up wealthy. We worked for everything we have, and I don't mind getting on my knees and helping out with anything I have to. That's something that I've always done, even in the lunchroom when I've worked at schools. I'm there with a custodian, helping set up the tables and put everything away. In fact, my wife has a picture in a newsletter that was done that I believe a custodian wasn't able to get to one area, and they put it out on the district website, and it shows her with a vacuum cleaner, one that you put over your shoulder, and she's in a dress with high heels over there vacuuming the floor. You know, that those are the things we have to do because we need to support each other and know that every job is important. One job isn't more important than another, and no job is more important than mine either. All of our jobs are equal, and we need to be supportive of each other to make it happen. As far as the other one was complaints or conflict?
Yeah, staff concerns.
Staff concerns, I really do believe, first of all, in following the chain of command, that helps with streamlining answers and following and supporting everyone through that process. Having an open door policy for me, I'm open to that because I'm open to hearing what people have to say. But I also want to make sure that they follow the chain of command so you know the process for how you're going to learn and interact with people, and that respect and leadership is there. So it has to be kind of supported both ways.
What is something, maybe it's a leadership style, or maybe it's a specific program that you have experience with from your current role, and maybe you're thinking, I definitely want to bring that with me if I get this next job in Kalama. Is there something that you'd like to bring from your current role to Kalama in particular?
Sure. I think it goes back to what I've said before. As far as a philosophy, I kind of do a hybrid. I think I'm an authentic leader, a collaborative leader, and a servant leader. And what that means is I'm here to serve others. I'm here to work with you. The collaboration part that's a key for us, that I'm always taking input from everyone and listening to everyone to bring everyone together. And the authenticity is I'm always giving you my best honest face. I'm a stickler against fibbing. It's something that my kids know just puts me on edge. So being authentic, I think, needs to be part of that to build trust, being collaborative and working with each other. And then again, making sure that for me, I'm modeling and giving back to the community. I'm here to serve you. I'm a guest in your house, in your community, and I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored to serve. And I think that's the philosophy and ideology that I would bring here.
We have about 8 minutes left, so I want to do another check-in to see if anyone has any questions out here. Yep.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about the elephant in the living room here.
Okay, yes,
that
ma'am.
Everybody is hearing about just about everywhere you go. And that's sexual orientation and gender identity and how it's creeping into the school. And what is your view on that?
Okay. Well, I guess the aspect we have to look at is I go back to ensuring that students are safe. They have to be safe in their learning environment to learn. Our core is making sure that we're protecting the students and bringing that learning environment open to them to where they can learn. The number 2 part of that is there are state laws that we have to follow and we have to look at. And those have to be put in place. Otherwise, your district gets sued and you can lose a lot of money on that. I've seen it happen. Our district gets sued all the time, constantly. Not because they necessarily did anything wrong, but you know, people sue. And then when you do something wrong, you'll lose. So I'd want to be concerned about that and making sure that's in place. There's another item that was put in place that I think is good when it comes to curriculum and instruction, and that is making sure we follow the state's curriculum instruction because we have to, that's mandatory. But if there's anything outside of that, that is something that every community is different on what they want to have in the school and what they don't. And there's a process that you could go through where books or items that maybe you're concerned about, you have the opportunity to voice your opinion and vote on what is going to stay and what isn't. There's an instructional material assessment community guide that can take place if that's something that you want. A lot of that stuff I really bring back to the community and ask them what your needs are and what you want to happen here, because we need to hear everyone's voice of where it's at, as long as we're following law and as long as we're following what the curriculum standards are. That's what I have to work on and make sure those are in place. And we take that feedback and then move forward with where the community has set forth they want to go, because like I said, every community is different. What's happening in this one is working for them is not necessarily what works over here. So we have to take all of that in. But again, I go back to, we have to make sure the students are safe and we're following law. So that's another part that has to be at the table. Okay?
Any other questions? I think we've got about 5 minutes left. Yep.
I was just wondering about disruptive youth, in terms of how you think that how to address, to have the staff address the problem of having disruptive youths in the class.
Okay. No, that's a good question. That's something that's also happening nationally. I don't know what COVID did, but it impacted all of us, and it's kind of put us in a tailspin that we're all trying to work ourselves out of and dig ourselves back out of because of just what happened with it. But I don't want to sound like a broken record, but that multi-tiered systems of support of assessing the behavior, the academics, and the social emotional learning, and then providing those interventions is one way to deal with behavior. You're basically setting it up and being preemptive and stopping the behavior before it rises. Once the behavior rises, it's already done. We have to get and identify the symptoms of what's causing it here and prevent it here so it doesn't happen at this point. And then the other thing is making sure that our policies and regulations line up with that, and they're very clear about what we're going to do with those behaviors. And that is also put in your student code of conduct, that it is very detailed, that if this behavior happens, this is the consequence. And then being consistent. You have to be consistent with your rules and how you follow up. If you don't, it makes it look wishy-washy. And then it causes people to act out even more because they feel like, well, it didn't work here and I can go do it over here. It makes everything wobble. But those systems and structures about assessing the kids and providing those interventions is key. And then it's also setting up a culture where we are working together, where we set that tone, like I said, for the week of respect. We're here to learn with each other, be safe, respect each other, be kind. That has to be a constant mantra, constantly. And that sets a tone for the school and sets a course for that. And then as all the instructional leaders and even staff, all staff, they're emulating that and constantly saying the same thing. And those type of things reduce those type of behaviors. Okay? Yeah.
All right, we've got about 2 minutes left, so we'll leave you with one last kind of get to know you question. Sure. And that's simply, as an administrator in education, you're certainly wearing a lot of hats, especially a small district. With a full plate, thinking as superintendent, what would you do, maybe what you already do, to recharge yourself, to kind of refill the tank? What do you like to do?
No, that's a good one. And that's something that I have to monitor because I do get into stuff and I want to see success in what I'm working on, but you do have to find balance. Otherwise you'll burn yourself out. And that is happening nationally. That's an issue. We're losing teachers. They're getting burned out. So you have to have balance. So what I do is I do read a lot, and that's relaxing to me, and I'm reading a lot about academics. I'm doing my doctorate right now, so I'm enjoying that. It is relaxing, maybe not for some, but for me it is. I always make sure that I do journal writing, and I write down things that I'm grateful for, things that I want to do during the day that are going to be supportive to others. That fills my tank, so to speak. And then I'll be honest, I haven't been consistent on my exercising, but I need to get back on the treadmill, obviously, and that is something that I normally have incorporated in my schedule. That is my weak point, but I'll be working on that. But you have to have that type of balance. And then, you know, a big thing for me and my wife is we're with our kids all the time. So when I'm not working, we're traveling all around, taking them where they have to go. They have dance classes they go to, they're in karate, they're doing all this stuff. So we're always traveling with them, and I find enjoyment spending my time with my family.
Great. Well, that is it for our time. Please join me in thanking Brandon for being here tonight.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
And for those joining on Zoom, and especially for those that came out in person, thank you so much. Great to have you. We'll be here again same time tomorrow for our third finalist. Sorry, not Thursday. Thursday evening is our third finalist. Appreciate you coming out. Have a good night. Thank you.